So the biggest question on my timeline is, are Arsenal signing Ivan Toney in this January transfer window? We'll answer that question in this video. We'll also find out whether Arsenal are really prepared to pay 100 million for Ivan Toney in January. Can we afford him? Are Brentford really willing to sell? And is the player signing a new deal at Brentford in this month? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We're going to be diving into the truth about Ivan Toney's transfer in January. What is the competition? What is it going to take for Arsenal to land a major striker as well? So the first question, are Arsenal really interested in Ivan Toney? I think that's a no-brainer. According to Fabrizio Romano, David Onstein, and a couple of other, huge houses and journalists, they can confirm that Arsenal are really interested in Ivan Toney. He's a player that we would love to add to our ranks as a striker, as a goal scorer. He's a player that we've actually looked at over, an extended period of time since 2021. Mikel Arteta made a couple of bids, together with Arsenal, but they were turned down by Brentford. They were not willing to sell in 2021. They were just coming into the Premier League, and they felt like staying with every player and keeping their squad together was the only way for them to succeed, and they have actually, succeeded. This is their third season, probably, in the Premier League, and although they are relegation threatened at the moment, with David Raya now out, Ivan Toney coming back, it could be a major boost as well. So Ivan Toney, there is real interest from Arsenal. We want him. We've always wanted him, and Arsenal are looking at him as one of the potential striker options we could sign in January or even in the summer. Now we have a problem. We have a problem with FFP. We can't sign a player worth 100 million at the moment, and we will talk about, can we afford him? But of course, at the moment, he is a concrete option. We want him alongside Victor Boniface, alongside Victor Osimhen, and players like Dusan Vlahovic and Benjamin Sesko. He's leading the rest to join Arsenal as striker. It might not be in January. It might not be as early as we want it to be, but he might end up being an Arsenal striker. He might end up being the next big signing we see at the club. So can we afford Ivan Toney? It's another big question that has been sounded out by David Onstein and The Athletic, that Arsenal have financial problems and financial fair play regulations are actually on our neck. So can we then afford a player like Ivan Toney with all these problems? So Arsenal are aware that we want the Brentford wants 70 to 80 million in Ivan Toney, and that cannot be done in January. According to The Athletic, Arsenal will have to sell massively in order to invest in a player like Ivan Toney. So the likes of Aaron Ramsdale, ESR, Reece Nelson, and a couple of other players, Elneny, Partey, Jorginho, will have to leave for substantial amounts of money for us to be able to afford Ivan Toney, who is going to cost upwards of 80 million, but then also for Arsenal to stay on the right-hand side of FFP after doing this deal. So that is how difficult the deal is. It's very expensive. Arsenal want to get it done, but they don't have the resources, and we do not have the ability for us to outspend, our FFP limit. It's very close. According to David Onstein, Arsenal are very close to breaching the FFP rules in the summer, and that is why we did the David Raya deal from Brentford on loan, and then we will make it permanent in 2024. So at the moment, I'm going to say no, we cannot afford Ivan Toney. We don't have the resources, right there. We don't have the resources at hand to sign him from Brentford, unless Arsenal can agree on a swap deal, where you could include players like ESR, Edin Ketia, and probably, if they can agree, Aaron Ramsdale. The other way we could afford him is by negotiating a similar deal we negotiated with Brentford for David Raya. He comes in on an initial loan deal. We can include an obligation, or we can include an option to buy at the end of the campaign. That in that way we can afford him. But when it comes to paying straight cash, when it comes to putting cash down on the table, at the moment Arsenal cannot afford Ivan Toney. I'm very, very sorry. So where do our FFP problems come from? Just a little bit. They come from the fact that we have spent a lot of money, especially £200 million last summer. 100 million on Declan Rice, 100 million on Kai Havertz, and Jalen Timber, and of course an extra 30 million on that guy David Raya. So given the fact that we have not made a lot of money and we have not sold a lot of players, we have not raised a lot of money in player sales. That is why we have those financial fair play problems. But of course, Arsenal expecting a lot of money from the Champions League campaign, from the Premier League campaign that we're enjoying at the moment, and we are also expecting to sell some significant players at the club, including Thomas Partey, including Aaron Ramsdale, including Emil Smith-Rowe, and that could all bring in about maybe 100 million. Arsenal then can go back in the window and try to reinvest into the squad. So Brentford, where are they? Do they want to sell? Do they want to let the player go? Do they see him as a player they can do away with? Is his surplus requirements at the moment? Is their priority getting money in Ivan Toney? The answer is no. Arsenal know that Brentford are not 100% willing to let one of their best players, to let their most prized asset leave in January. And that's why Brentford have said, you want to take him, you'll give us 80 to 100 million. It's going to take something huge, something substantial, and something very, very, attractive for them to let him go. Now, what I'm going to say here is very clear. I don't think they're raising the bar only because they don't want to sell. They're also raising the bar because they know Arsenal are desperate to get a striker in January, but they're also raising the bar because there are a couple of other clubs that want strikers, and strikers are really scarce in the market right now. If you're looking for 20 plus goals on the market, those strikers are not readily available. So you look at the likes of Victor Boniface and Victor Osimhen. Those are young strikers. They have not proven enough that they can give you 20 plus goals, at every single level. Ivan Toney, probably Ivan Toney, and the likes of Harry Kane. Those are the only strikers that can guarantee you 30 goals plus, 20 goals plus. And Brentford know that. So they're saying, if you want to take one of the goal machines on the European market right now, how about you pay the money that we actually deserve? But Brentford don't want to sell. They are flirting with relegation. They would love to turn around, the ship. Otherwise, they could seek into relegation. It would be disgraceful for Thomas Frank to go back in the championship. Not because I like Brentford, but I like Thomas Frank as a manager. I think he's a prodigy. I think he's a very, very smart guy. And Ivan Toney can actually save them. So Brentford are looking at it in this way. We keep him, we stay afloat, we don't go into relegation. We also keep him. That means that we can get some good money in the summer. So we're hearing they're preparing a new deal where they want to include a release clause in Ivan Toney's contract. That means that when come the summer, his value is protected and they can guarantee themselves some huge amount of money. So what do you think? They don't want to sell, but they have raised the offer to 80 to 100 million. Do you think Arsenal should pay 80 to 100 million? Is it an overpay? Is it the right price? I mean, if the price is right, you definitely get a point, and you also take the item. So let me know in the comment box below what you think about that. Now, let's talk about the new deal Brentford are preparing for Ivan Toney. This is quite genius from Brentford, and this is one of the biggest blows to Arsenal's pursuit of Ivan Toney this January transfer window. So Brentford have prepared a new deal. It could go until 2026 for Ivan Toney, and when he comes back, they prepare to give him that deal, to sign it. They will increase his pay a little bit, and they will want him to actually have a release clause in that deal. So what they're trying to do here, Brentford, is they want to make sure that the value of the player is protected. They want to make sure that even if it's in the summer, someone can still pay 100 million for Ivan Toney. And when he comes back, he's going to be their star man. He's going to be their leading goal scorer. There is no question about that. The likes of Jensen, the likes of Christian Nogard are all going to be creating chances and contributing to the tally of one man. And just one man, and that man is Ivan Toney. So when he comes and signs a new deal, it's over for Arsenal. You cannot sign a player who has just signed a new deal with a release clause, because Victor Osimhen has a release clause as well, which is 130 million euros. If Arsenal are going about triggering release clauses, probably we will have triggered one by now already. So Ivan Toney's new deal could be a hindrance to his moving in January. Now, does the player want to sign the new deal? Absolutely. 100% he wants to sign the new deal. He says he's respectful to Brentford, and therefore he's not going to be pushing for a move. He's not going to turn down a new deal in order to push for a transfer. So if a club comes in and agrees a deal with Brentford before he signs, then well and good, he would love to move on. But if no club agrees a deal with Brentford, Ivan Toney is willing to pen, a new contract because he's respectful. I was actually watching one of the interviews he did. It was on the diary of a CEO, and literally says that Brentford have been supportive. They've been behind him as a team. The players, the manager Thomas Frank, everyone at Brentford has been behind him, and they've actually given him the support he would have wanted. As a club, they have taken him in as a chicken. Takes in its chicks. So that is the situation. He respects them. He loves the environment. He loves Brentford. If anyone is going to sabotage that relationship, it should be an agreement between Brentford and the club, and not Ivan Toney and the club. So what about what we're hearing? Him being crazy about Arsenal, wanting a move in January and all that. Again, I can confirm that Ivan Toney is really ready to move on. He's talked about his move before. Again, he was talking on the diary of a CEO, and he said, listen, Liverpool, I like. I grew up as a Liverpool fan. I've looked at their football as well as a club. I really adore it. But I also like Arsenal, and if there is a chance that I join a proper project, I would definitely welcome the chance. And that means that he is not really sold onto, but he is eyeing a move to Arsenal. We are prepared to get in a good striker and feed him with good chances. We are creating good chances, and our project is facing the right direction, right? So he wants to go to a club that has a good direction, a right project for him. That could be Arsenal. However, this doesn't mean that he's going to be pushing for a move. He wants the move, but he won't push for it. He will stay quiet. He will, sit down and wait and see. If anyone comes in with the right amount of money for Brentford, then he's happy to leave. However, if you don't come in with the right amount of money that Brentford are asking for, he will be staying put. There is competition on Ivan Toney. I think that Chelsea really wants him, and a couple of other clubs that are looking for strikers. And Arsenal are not the only contenders to sign Ivan Toney. So Chelsea, according to Fabrizio Romano, they're not 100% sold on to the idea of Ivan Toney. They'll prefer Victor Osimhen. They feel the hierarchy thinks Victor Osimhen would be the better striker for Chelsea's needs other than Ivan Toney. But the difference, between the two is here. Availability. Arsenal know, and Chelsea know as well, that if you want to be, if you want an available striker right now, it's Ivan Toney, right? Victor Osimhen has just signed a new deal at Napoli, 130 million euros release clause inserted. So he's not available in January. He's not available this winter. So if anyone wants to sign Ivan Toney, it's going to be January. You can get him in January. He's gettable. So Chelsea are in that, not 100% locked on him. They are still looking at other options, but they are also sniffing around for a striker, and Ivan Toney is in their ranks. Another club that I would say is competing with Arsenal right now would be definitely Manchester United. They are looking for a striker, but it doesn't seem like they're looking for that super expensive number 9. So they already have Rasmus Hojlund at around £75 million. They'll be looking at a Sahu Girassi. They'll be looking at a Donian Marlin. They will be looking at these younger, cheaper strikers, players probably whose contracts are running down in the summer, just to make sure they can bolster the move and the forward line at Manchester United in January. So Ivan Toney, again, Arsenal, one of the top leading sides in that deal, but the money is actually too much, very, very much. So the 100 million, what do I think about it? Is it a hindrance to the deal? Absolutely. Firstly, like I said, there is FFP issues, but then also Arsenal don't think it's 100 million. He is worth 100 million. I personally don't think he is 100 million. And I've said this before on a couple of players. I've always said I don't see Alexander Isak as worth 100 million. And when he's come to Newcastle, he's played like any other normal player. Very good. I love him. He's silky. He's absolutely silky. He's a bowler, my boy. But he's not 100 million euros. Declan Rice, we could argue, is he a bargain for 100 million? Definitely not, right? But is he 100 million? For me, again, definitely not. But the 100 million is going to stand in the way of Arsenal and Ivan Toney this January. It will stand in the way of Arsenal and Ivan Toney in the summer as well. I don't see Arsenal opening up their wings and going, this is the time for us to put £100 million on a player who has spent a couple of months out not playing football. I would love to see him at Arsenal. I think his profile is very good, but £100 million, I'm not really very convinced. So why then? What happens next? Why do Arsenal? What do Arsenal do after this whole fiasco? We can't afford him and everything. Arsenal have started looking at alternatives, and today one of the stories I've actually done. Arsenal are looking at Dusan Vlahovic. 50 million euros is what Arsenal would be willing to pay this January. Again, it might be a difficult deal, but Juventus have financial fair play problems, and that means you can actually go in there and poach one of their attackers right from there. But Arsenal also looking at other attackers as well. Victor Boniface at Bayer Leverkusen and Victor Osimhen as well at Napoli are other players we're looking at. Osimhen is not an option for January, so as we talk about January, we might stick with Victor Boniface. We might stick with the likes of Dusan Vlahovic and a couple of other strikers around the Premier League and Europe. But of course, keeping Eddie Nketiah. Did you believe that? Yeah, I mean, keeping Eddie. That could be an option. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. That is the whole truth and the whole story about Arsenal signing Ivan Toney. Everything you need to know is in there, unless otherwise. I'll be giving you updates every single time on the Arsenal transfer window.